Hello, how are you? Grand Rise, Grand Day. Thanks for being here. Thanks for just being you. Okay, so I have a theory. I was just wondering, um, kind of philosophically and theologically, because there's a lot of religion, there's a lot of angels and demons and good and bad. And so I was looking up, there's a love demon named Salos, okay? And this demon apparently looks really scary, but is super nice and patient and kind. And is dressed like a warrior, though they actually do not really fight like a warrior. And they ride on a alligator or a dragon, so to speak. And I was like, and apparently he teaches liberal arts and astrology. So I'm like, okay, what makes a demon a demon? Is it that they rebelled against God? So I looked that up. What makes a demon a demon? And according to this one spiritual person, and some others, but this one was more specific, they were saying that demons don't even have a body, that they are represented in a spiritual realm, and that they were rebellious against God. That they felt like God wasn't giving them free will, and that made them mad at God. So they rebelled against God, and then talked all their friends into rebelling against God. And he was saying that in goodness and creation, and I kind of got this message because we associate chaos to badness when laughter is chaos, art is chaos, sports, kids, a birth is chaos, death is chaos. Life, creation in general is chaos. So what happens is we become, I think, desensitized to chaos because of the way that we're taught about things. Okay, so according to this guy, God is all goodness, therefore it's impossible to create said evil in the concept that we have. But through the angels who rebelled against God intellectually, they were cast out of heaven. And then they're represented with these grotesque faces because I guess the more punished they were, or the less punished they were, it would show on their faces. Even though they say Lucifer was like beautiful. Okay. So just these are things that I just find a little confusing, but I can see. So if God is all good, then God is all love. And God doesn't keep score. Love doesn't keep score, and love is just love. It's like pure acceptance is my guess, right? Because I think that us as humans, because of how the world has been taught to us, to me, love is both an illusion and a feeling. I guess it's more than two things. And an action, right? Or vibration, right? Because I associate love with like goodness. But I think love is accepting things that aren't always good. I think good is easy, or I think easy is easy, and I think hard is where love is necessary. I've definitely had to figure that out the hard way, right? Okay. So there's a demon named Amy. So I've looked it up. And there's the demon named Salos. And both of them are like, I don't get it. Like, why are they so bad? What's so bad about them? Why are they cursed to hell forever? And in there it says that when God created the angels, he tested them. I'm sorry, but that in itself is confusing. Is that even necessary? Would there even be a rebellion? Okay. So then in this description, he says that the angels battled the dragon or the giant serpent. Well, according to what I've been told, what I've gotten spiritually, and what I've seen written, is that the Great Mother, even Tiamat, is depicted as a giant dragon and a giant serpent. So, is it possible? So, if we were to say we're going to rebel against God, but God is all encompassing and all loving, the only thing I could totally relate to the aspect or idea of God would be nature. Because that would be the only thing that I can consciously see that we are rebelling against. So, are the angels? This just brings me back to the idea that if we are to completely let go of shame, blame, guilt, and the idea of punishment, I think it's crazy. It's kind of like the idea of the circle, and that's a whole nother thing is with what's going on. But it's like, if we have the concept of demons and angels, then we have the concept of good and bad. And we have the concept of what is okay as far as in the angelic realm. Which reminds me, of course, this flies into my mind right now. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie, I think it's called Avion. It's about the sage Sybil, teacher, philosopher, astrologer, astronomer, both. Her name is Hypatia. H-Y... No. Hypatia. Hypatia. So it's about a teacher sage who taught in the Library of Alexandria as the time that Christianity and Judaism were really making their mark on the world, so to speak. And she taught some of the great Christians and some of the great Jews and some of the great pagans. She taught them. She taught them philosophy. She taught them about the stars and all kinds of things, and never oppressed religion. Just always came from a place of philosophy. She was also a virgin, and the story, basically, the reason why I'm talking about it is because in it, two particularly religious people or devout Christians who were extremely murderous, both the Jews and the Christians at the time. I only laugh because it's perplexing to me, even to this day, that we will use the words of religion. And I mean, I can understand the human side of like being in total rage and anger and wanting to harm. But then to just, I think if we are speaking of a benevolent being who is all loving and cherishes life enough to create it, I think it's interesting that we would use that same being as a reason to do the opposite, is basically my point. Because in this movie, it shows like the basic just hatred towards one group and the other just because of what they believe. Like, what? And then, I know I'm stepping on some toes and I'm upsetting people, and it was a shock to me. And let me tell you, the more and more I research things, the more upsetting it is that we've been so misled. I mean, even about our own religion, right? I mean, did our religion come from Africa or is it from here? You know what I mean? If we're from here, so back to Hypatia and back to kind of like the daemon, angel thing. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So in that, one of the priests that basically ordered her death because she just spoke the truth of like, hey, you guys, maybe somebody should be held accountable for talking people into stoning each other to death. Like, we're going to lose all our citizens if this keeps happening. And one of those priests like reads from the scripture that was basically stolen from Alexandria, some of the writings that even she wrote, quoting that a woman shouldn't question God or speak up against the church. So she was sentenced to being ungodly and made to be one of the first, I say, examples or martyrs of the feminine philosophy and the feminine strength, because she was a muse. They considered her high up there, and even her father supported her in not getting married because he knew that then she would become more subservient, and he didn't want that for her. And she didn't want to become a Christian because they're told you're not supposed to question everything. You're not supposed to question God. Which even God says. But anyhow, so again, that man who basically sentenced her to being ungodly just because she questioned some things and influenced a Roman, she taught this Roman diplomat, so to speak. He became a saint, and another man who was pretty brutal and murderous also became a saint because they were so protective of the religion. So with that, these men were made saints. They were extremely brutal to this woman who literally did nothing. These men were able to murder groups of people and be exalted into sainthood, which she was made an example of. Gosh darn it. Oh, okay. It's still there. I'm still going. I thought it stopped. I'm like, oh man. So it's just heartbreaking because she was a virgin. Oh, and they called her a witch. She didn't actually, her father practiced, magic, so to speak, or the occult, but she was a teacher. She didn't, according to this movie, which may not be all correct, because everything can get twisted, so I'm not going to say that, but it matches to kind of the story of the angels and the demons. Like, some of these demons are actually, one of them's a mermaid, one of them is a beautiful woman, some of them change genders. In the African pantheon, there are deities that change genders. In a lot of in nature, things change gender. I just think that it's highly possible that these said angels and demons are actually us, and that most of the demons were women or men that became followers of the woman, because that would be the only true rebellion against God, I would think. Because if we have all these different religions, predominantly taught by men, then and then if we as a whole beings, people in the whole cosmos, and we're learning to let go of blame and shame and guilt, Well, action has to take place on one level, and then the other level is like over and understanding, overstanding, relating, even these concepts. Like, I think we're asking a lot of ourselves if we have a spiritual bias, so to speak, or a spiritual faith in that there are angels and there are demons. And I'm not negating that. But ones are, angels are exalted and live forever in heaven, and demons are punished and live in the underworld forever and can never get back to heaven. Never have the love of God again. Is that possible? If God is always loving, wouldn't it be us that has decided? And if it's a dragon serpent and a lot of the demons have feminine aspects and they don't, I mean, there are some demons that are pretty gnarly, right? But also there's a lot of demons that are not. They seem like, were they rebels? Because I think it's a little confusing. And it is confusing because if me, general person, is looking to say I can let go of these condemnations that I brought upon myself, and then I look outside of me and I might have a religion or a teaching that teaches me that there is a hierarchy in heaven, there's a hierarchy in the other dimensions, there are hierarchies, which makes sense because you would think about like maybe experience. You wouldn't put a 4-year-old in charge of a spaceship, right? So I get that idea, experience hierarchy, so to speak. But even in that, what's recognized is like experience and time, and the hierarchy is understood rather than constructed, because I feel that that's part of it. If we are taught condemnation, shame, guilt, blame, then how can we not project that? And and then I think that that's what helps shorten our lifespan, because again, I say, let's just say we were in the times of what they call biblical times, and we just so happen to have the technology to be able to talk about something now. In 300 years from now, we'd be talking about something completely different, because I wouldn't look any different. 300 years, you can't. It's harder to scare people. Really, I think most fear comes from death, and then we just attach all these other things to it. Like, I mean, the stories of the afterlife from Ma'at and all of that. But what if we hadn't been taught any of those things? What if we had been taught you can live forever? You're going to live to be 900 years old. What if that's what we were taught? And doesn't that mean that like the ancestors how old are angels and demons? Right? Like if we used to live that old, there's some kind of gap missing here. There's always some kind of gap missing, right? In our culture and what we've been taught. So I just think it's perplexing to have a spiritual world that teaches us evil and fear, and to stay away from that and work on the narrow path, which when we go into meditation and that type of thing, or we go on the path of like healing, apparently that is the narrow path, or your mind, your third eye tends to go into this smaller path of, I guess, simplicity and the divinity of the divine and creation. And, I see the divine as a feminine aspect because I believe that mostly we have learned things from nature, and we watch that there are certain creatures on the planet that seem genderless, like fish, okay? And by looking at them, or birds, and create through the male and female. So we do understand that aspect, but even they start out as a circular form, the one, right? And then divide into many ones, circles, and then create into a form. And then we live in a world where we have like race and religion and classism and what? 900 years. 900 years old. Will we still be so affected by those things? Will we still be so embedded and affected by those things? I just find it interesting and feel that this has been a construct, I think. And that within us are those two aspects. And that we've created these outward aspects to help us deal with them. And so now, I guess if we bring them back in and recognize our own, benevolent and malevolent or productive or destructive nature of our own selves, then we naturally let go of, blame, shame, and guilt. And wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where we just excuse me, kind of focused on, not even focused, but where spirituality just was. It wasn't something we had to necessarily seek out. And I think that that's where religion even comes in. But I think if we were just living in nature and lived in communities the way we used to, maybe it wouldn't be so sought after. It would just already be there. Anyways, long share. Thanks for watching. And I hope you're doing well. Sending, well wishes and healthy thoughts and well-being and mental well-being and peace to you and your family and the land around you and your animals, pets. And thanks for watching again. See you next time.